Hi, John.
Hey, Nick, we're back. We're back.
Hey.
Have you enjoyed your vacation from daily Kanreki exercises?
Oh, Hugh, my wife was starting to forget what I looked like.
Yeah, I had a celebratory dinner with my wife to say that we had gotten through that. Happy birthday, Joe. Um, it was a lot of fun. We've gotten
Ah,
a lot of new friends. We've gotten a lot of positive, little bit of challenging feedback, especially to our last episodes. And no word from Team Rolling. I still keep looking in my box. We
yeah.
we did have one person who said, or a couple people. I think Brian Visor said, Rolling has said from the very start of her work implicitly, play with me. You know, let's engage with my work. Um, look at it. There's more here than you think there is. And Ryan said this was the best birthday present she could have asked for. Oh, no, that's a wonderful thing. And um,
I really hope that's true. I know we've upset some people in the fandom, some people I like and respect. Um, I I hope I hope that if we're wrong, people can engage with the golden thread idea and show us where we're wrong. Because like all good scientists and engineers, all knowledge is good. And if we've missed something or we've got it wrong, then let's try and understand it.
yeah, I'll be running up the Lost Child Golden Thread in the coming week, and we'll be talking about that next week. Paid subscribers can join us, for that. And um, the best outcome of our dropping the Lost Child Golden Thread and the induced abortion hypothesis is that already we've had two theories at least that I don't think explain the data as well as the hypothesis does, but are more than credible alternatives to what we're saying. Um, and so
That's
that's
great.
that's that's what we'll be discussing that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that people that think that we have an agenda here that we want to put the scarlet A, not for adultery, on Rolling and
Well,
accuse her of
lo,
committing
lo,
this horrendous feticide.
long
Grow
time
up.
long time listeners, watchers, and readers will know that John and I come from opposite ends of the political spectrum. So I think we can honestly say that no, this is not a concerted effort to pillory Rowling. If she has had an abortion, I say because again we've got a theory that fits the golden thread. That's all we've got. It's not an accusation or even really credible evidence. It's just a theory that fits the thread. But one problem we've had, and people haven't started complaining yet, but they will, with us being so busy over the Kanreki month, we haven't been paying as much attention to the comments that we've been getting on the Substack as we should do.
Hence, you know, today's show. I mean, I went back and I thought, well, maybe there's like 10 questions, maybe there's 10 comments in here that they're questions that we just missed because we're going back now. And a lot of the things I found, I went through every comment thread yesterday and pulled up all the questions and comments that I thought were there. And as you might imagine, traffic picked up, beginning on the third week. All of a sudden, people discovered what we were doing, and so they were leaving comments on the older threads while Nick and I were struggling to get to the finish line. I didn't see all these. One of them, Kathleen O'Connor, who left really wonderful, wonderful comments throughout the experience, and she shared with us that she was basically this was her break apart from time she was helping a good friend of hers in hospice care. Kathleen, if you're out there, thank you for the work that you're doing for your friend, and you were definitely the wind in our sails, knowing that this was something that you were touching base with every day. Anyway, she left one of the comments she left, Nick, was on one of the early threads that I missed. I just totally went over. Well, she said, you guys got to start using water things for the
Yeah.
spring. You know, the water's coming in. I didn't pick up on that until Ed Shardlow said something like that, you know. So I was like, I mean, that's Kathleen's, and we're going to be using that.
Well,
We're no longer going to use pillars and buoys. We're going to use, you know,
well done,
springs
Kathleen.
and
Well, I mean, at least your metaphor, John, was fairly nautical. So you wanted for me to use buoys. Now the trouble is, in the UK, we don't call them buoys. We call them buoys. And
isn't
John
that
wouldn't.
sad?
Yeah,
That's
John
like
did.
kids thrown overboard, you know. Throw the boy out there, you know. Oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah. So
See the kid floats on the water, you know.
John didn't want me to say one of Rowling's boys floating in the lake. So no. So I came up with pillar, which isn't very lakey. Yep, stream. Yeah, stream is just beautiful.
That's like
Anyway,
punting the children across the
we want to
bog
keep this.
Yeah,
situation.
that's right.
We want to keep this to, you know, under an hour, believe it or not. So I'm gonna dive right in here.
Okay.
Yeah, here's the first one I got is Kathleen O'Connor's. Every time I
Yeah.
hear you banter about pillars and buoys or buoys, I think mountain streams, underground springs, replenishing rains. The metaphor clearly demands the water sources for the Lake of Inspiration. Kathleen, you
We're on
have
board.
won the day. Then there's the one from my son. I could listen to Harry Potter literary alchemy for days. And that's the question. When are you guys going to talk about literary alchemy? Well, we're going to be doing a full course. We're going to be filming classes for a full course on the lake and the shed. You know, basically Nick's 4 springs and my 3 shed elements, 3 toolboxes. And one of them, of course, is literary alchemy inside the tools. And we'll be filming those things. And my son said for days. Yeah, it'll be for days when the course is all together. The paid subscribers will get to listen to those things as we put them up. The free subscribers will get some parts of those, but not the whole thing. All right. And then Lily said, I would actually watch your 164 hours plus full analysis of Rowling's life by our most intense dissection of casual vacancy. Nick responded to that like, I'm tempted. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Yeah. Some books will get more attention than others from the lake side of things.
Yeah. What I'd really like to do, and I've been talking about this again for maybe not a full year, but for some time now, is I'd like to do the geography of Casual Vacancy and Tuts Hill, and I'd like to film that on location to just show people how close it is. You know, that living in the shadow of the manor house, and
Well,
growing up in the
we have a
Graveyard.
subscriber in Tutsill who could carry your camera for you, Nick, that
Yeah.
can follow you around. All right, the next thing we got here was from Kathleen O'Connor and Aurora, and it was in response to the Troubled Blood post, where we talked about the medieval allegory that's implicit, basically the Spencerian fairy queen backdrop to that entire story. We have an Una and a Duessa Janus in the Margot Bamborough story, and Margot as the Pearl is also a reference to this. And how the abortion story is against that backdrop. And Kathleen and Aurora asked great questions and wonderful response to what we said. And that moved us to share the lost child golden thread and the induced abortion hypothesis in our last episodes. I'm not going to talk about that here anymore, other than to say, wow, Kathleen and Aurora, that was, I'm not sure that Nick and I enjoyed the prompt to do that at the very end, and that it probably came off less than one respondent we got said it was under evidenced and inflammatory. I disagree with it being under evidenced, but inflammatory, I think it was necessarily because it was so speculative, people were going to take it wrong. Anyway, this next week I'm going to be writing that stuff up, and we're going to do some more episodes on that with the wonderful counters to our hypothesis, counter hypothesis. That's what you do. You put up your best guess, and someone says, no, I've got a better solution to what that evidence is. And we've already gotten 2 of those that one from Aurora that I think have to be considered as, I don't think they're equal to it, and I'll argue against them, but this is more of a discussion than it is Nixon Mai carrying placards saying this is exactly the case. If you don't agree with us, you're wrong. All right, Mighty Miez. This is a challenging one, Nick. I think it would be good if you could talk about the gender essay in the full. I would just love to hear more Lake stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. So Nick, what do you think?
We've always we were going to do an episode in the Kanreki on J.K. Rowling's feminism. Now, surprising as it seems to John and I, apparently listening to two old men talk about feminism is not the most captivating draw imaginable. If you thought talking about the lost child hypothesis was bad optics, I would love to do this as well. I would love to do it with a feminist, with someone with the history of feminism, preferably in the UK, doing it with us. So it's
that's necessary fourth generation work.
Yeah,
get it. We're right there with you, but are we the people to do that? What I will do, I think, is talk about Germaine Greer's positions, especially with respect to abortion and transgenderism, and Camille Paglia, who Rowling's never mentioned Camille Paglia, but she's the person they both resemble. And the reason I want to talk about those feminists is not because I'm a feminist and not because I'm especially literate in even those two feminists' work, but because those two feminists have PhDs from prestigious universities in literature. And Camille Paglia, especially, if you read her work even as superficially as I have, you'll find checkmark after checkmark of references to authors that Rowling loves and that Rowling references, even that Rowling uses as the backdrops to her stories. Now that's something I can talk about, is that these feminists have strong backgrounds in imaginative fiction, and their feminist views correspond with what I think is Rowling's implicit view on abortion inside these books. All right, Rebecca. Okay. She said,
okay.
Oh, this is a great one. I don't think there's a whole episode here, and I fully understand that they're not real people. Thank you. This is great. Rebecca anticipating my objection. But what are Strike and Robin's class? Maybe this is more obvious to Brits. As an American, I didn't know I should be paying more attention to how they took or made their tea. Okay. Strike's class seems hard to define, as he's both the son of a rock star and the son of a woman who's slightly above homeless. Anyway, Nick, there you go, Nick. You're getting exactly what I've been saying to you for at least 4 years. You've got to write up your class thing.
I don't think it's necessarily very much easier for a British person, and that's largely because it's sort of like asking a goldfish to describe water. It's we don't think about it much because it's just the environment that we're in. I don't know if you disagree, but we don't.
I agree. I think Robin's easier of the two.
Yeah.
But Strike, because of his unusual background and then his education interrupted.
So I've been helped immensely by this book. It's from a sociologist, Kate Fox, called Watching the English. And the class distinctions have got several really quite fascinating chapters in there about how we British people, we seem to self-organize ourselves into class, and there are lots of tells. The difficulty in trying to put a character is that, like real people, they're very three-dimensional. So you'll get lots of different traits will tend to fall into different classes. And also the author is, I would put into lower middle class. She was brought up as lower middle class. And so many of the language tells actually aren't really a tell. It's just the language of the author. So for instance, lower middle class tend to use for the John or WC, they will use the word toilet, whereas middle class and upper middle class will use lavatory. Doing doing a search of Rowling's published works, she uses the term toilet, and when people talk about the toilets, they talk about toilet. So that's one tell that you can't use. But yeah, so I agree with Anne. Robin is probably easier to classify, but again, there's a mix of tells in there. So she's a family of a distinguished veterinary, which is a profession, which would tend to be middle class. A professor, which would, again, maybe we could push that a little bit higher to upper middle class. She owned a pony. Again, really, we're talking about upper middle class.
And Strike finds that very funny.
Yeah. But she didn't go to a private school. She went to a state school. We don't know if it's comprehensive or a grammar, or there are several different types of state education, but that would tend to push it down a class. Largely because of that, she's retained a regional accent, which again tends to push it down a class. I was trying to look, actually, when I saw the comment from Rebecca, I was trying to get a fix on what color tea she likes. And I think the closest evidence we've got is she bought for the office the strong tea bags from Betty's when she went home to Massam. But again, she may have got those because we know that Strike likes mahogany colored tea.
Creosote.
Yeah, so I would put her probably as middle class. No higher than
Nick,
that.
you need in answer to the question.
Yeah.
Yes, Nick is going to be talking about class because I'm going to twist his arm across the Atlantic and say, "Come on, you know." All right. Did you guys, Ed Shardlow? This was after the third Fantastic Beasts films episode. Hold on, did you guys set this all up for the Snakewood reveal? Amazing. True confession, Ed. No, I wish that were true. I wish we had done the whole wood snake Kanreki thing, so we would hit you on that third Fantastic Beasts film. But it testifies to how little that Nick and I have been. I think Nick, you watched or you read the screenplay. I actually watched the film for the first time the night before we found that. Yeah. And imagine, Ed, if you're out there, hi Ed, that John's suddenly saying, "I don't believe this. This is Snakewood 1. You know, what's that about?" And it turns out Snakewood actually is a thing. It's from Western Australia, the backcountry, and it was Salazar Slytherin's one. So you think Snakewood, okay. But knowing that Rowling is a wood snake and that she has concerns not only with astrology, but with Eastern means of divination and the I Ching, okay, maybe that Snakewood thing was a self-reference there. But no, we didn't. That wasn't planned. That wasn't planned for the big reveal. Okay, Justin, here you are. Here's your question. Do you think that Jacob's witness of and participation in the magical events of the series is in keeping with the rules and characterization established in the Harry Potter series? Well, I think I said this to somebody else, that if ever you want to just step back and say, do John and Nick know really anything about this with respect to what Rowling has written? It's going to be with those films, because one, I want the months of my life back where I tried to get the original screenplay, the actual, shooting script screenplay from the first film. I just couldn't believe how frustrating it was. I just kept finding more stuff that the Davids had cut out of the movie that Rowling had written in. And I think at that point I just punted. I just said, I can't, who knows what Rowling wrote in this or not? So why am I really concerned about it? So yeah, I am willing to go out on an edge here and say that Jacob Kowalski, who is, the Latch in the first book, and who's got an outsized role, especially in the third book, where he doesn't really belong, that is Rowling's insertion of herself inside the thing. That Jacob Kowalski is the same as Joanne Kathleen Rowling, JK. Other than being a playful cameo, I don't feel comfortable talking anymore about that. And Justin, you're right here, but I hope that's satisfactory, is to say that you're asking me to pretend I'm an expert in something in which I am a boob. All the Beast fans out there, I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. But here, I've got you right here.
Did it feel, as you watched those movies or read the screenplays, that it fit in the rest of the world that she had built in the 7 Harry Potter novels? Because to me, it felt like a departure, and it might just be a medium, but it didn't feel of the same world.
Everything about the Fantastic Beasts films felt to me like a fan servicing. That Warner Brothers has this film franchise, and it's $1 billion per episode venture. They put hundreds of millions of dollars into it, in the promotion of it. And yet it was so confusing. I think Nick said one of his takeaways from the thing was what's our plan here? It's to be confusing. And it's like, okay, that's where we're at. That's our takeaway from this. And that's always a temptation in films that have, large numbers of actors and characters and stuff. But yeah, I never got into it, and I think the root of that is that the only saving grace to the Warner Brothers films is they acted as trailers to the books. You could go back and you could read the whole book. We don't have the books for Fantastic Beasts. We don't have the shooting script screenplay that they agreed to. So until we get those, and I think that probably my children and grandchildren may get those, after Rowling's death, and they start to release these things. But what a shame. What a shame that we don't have them. To me, everything about them seemed discordant and alien to the original Harry Potter stories. But again, that's as a non-Beast fanatic. I have not done the work. Forgive me. Okay, Aurora, another Aurora question. And Aurora, I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. There's an E on the end of there. Nick and I have had a little discussion here. Is it Aurora, or is it Aurora E, or is it Aurora? Forgive me. Please be sure that we're delighted by your questions, and only frustrated that we're probably saying your name wrong. Could you talk in a future episode about psychomachia? I've read the articles about it, but interested to understand more. Really, yeah, the depictive psychology or soul allegory, that's conventionally called psychomachia, in J.K. Rowling's work is essential. One of her core beliefs is the immortality of the soul, and so she depicts inside the story the soul's perfection in the spirit. We got a soul triptych in one story. We got the Shakespearean soul spirit romance in another. Christmas Pig has its own dynamic. If you don't understand psychomachia, you don't understand Rowling's core beliefs, you don't understand her core themes, and you don't understand one of the big tools in her shed. And if Coleridge was right about imagination, you don't understand why you like the story so much. So yeah, Aurora, that's going to be a big part of the courses that we give.
I think that one will be immensely popular. I for one, I'll be in the front row.
You will be, Nick, because you'll be the person saying, no, John, cut that. We're going to edit that out. All right. Wendy Griffiths. Hello, Wendy. What stands out for me, though, alongside all of this, is your friendship brought about by this shared interest. It's a joy to witness. I also nosily want to know more about John's visit to the UK and his impressions and thoughts. Maybe you could do another videoed one. Yeah, maybe we get a lot more paid subscribers, Wendy. We'll do anyway. Sorry if I'm being cheeky here, Wendy. No, Wendy, that's great. And Wendy, you have to know that this whole program wouldn't have existed except for Nick and I talk every week anyway.
Yeah.
And our wives are like, why don't you, share this with other people? You guys obviously are just laughing for 2 hours straight. Why don't you, share this stuff? And so, yeah, that's been the gestation of this. And I'm delighted that you have enjoyed these conversations as much as we have.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Ed Shardlow. Thinking about pearls, a pearl is a pretty good symbol for a lake and shed process. Now, I talked about this in the later episodes. The foundation of a pearl is some troubling grain of trauma, which then gets layers of luminescence wrapped around it, turns something valuable and beautiful. Also quite an alchemical process too. Absolutely, Ed. And I think that's why pearls are so important in Suzanne Collins's work and in Rowling's work. Anyway, that's spot on, Ed. And I've used that already in that. All right, Aurora again. I would love to sign up for the Read Hallmarked Man Like a Dickens novel class. Well, that's one of you. I don't know if many other people, as in like 2 or 3 others, would want to actually read each part as a closed system and pretend that we haven't got the rest of the book. But if anybody else there wants to join, leave your notes down below in the comments that you also want to read Hallmarked Man Like a Dickens novel. That is, we're going to read one part at a time, structure it, speculate about it, and take the pledge not to have read any more of it. All right, Rebecca. I thought Rebecca was going to be here today. But anyway, she said, this may be like telling you the Mirror of Erised is desire spelled backwards. But she quotes this. I always thought the Warlock's Hairy Heart and Beetle was inspired heavily by this C.S. Lewis quote. This was great. So this isn't really a question other than to say, do you think this may have been inspiration? But I think it was. Anyway, to love it all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in a casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. And she volunteered that may have been a paraphrase, but wow, what a beautiful paraphrase if it was.
Yeah.
Really, I think I was unfamiliar with that quotation. And so that is the moral of, if you had to have one paragraph as a moral of the Warlock's Hairy Heart, there it was. I would only add to that certainly Lewis, as a student of the Psalter and of Scripture and the traditions, is aware that the heart also is a spiritual capacity. I mean, to love is to be vulnerable not only to others, other human beings, but it's to be vulnerable to God. It's to be receptive to graces and mercies. Now that's still, I included this because I just want to say again that Rowling's, the clear parallels between stuff that she's written and stuff that C.S. Lewis has written is hard to get over. The 7-book Harry Potter series and the 7-book Narnia. She said the Narnia was one of her favorite series.
And then she walked back from that in the Lev Grossman interview.
Walked back from it. She called him she let someone call him a Death Eater, Lev Grossman, and didn't say, wait a minute. But she did say it wasn't that, agnostic or whatever. That but then in Cormoran Strike, she goes to the Cupid and Psyche thing. Yeah. That's Till We Have Faces, C.S. Lewis's favorite book that he wrote. And then we have The Great Divorce, backdrop to The Christmas Pig. Someone goes to the land of the lost. Someone goes to hell. That's a remarkable set of parallels, yeah. Nick. And then we get this hairy heart thing that Rebecca found, and that's first rate. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, Aurora again. I'm keen for any convos. I think Stephen's conversation is that Australian, Aurora, for conversation?
Australian, yeah, I think so.
Convos about things like the strike epigraphs, the device of foundation crimes, or how Rowling manages to set red herrings and surprise us with the culprit every time. How does she do that? Her characters feel so rich and real. Also been loving the Lake stuff through the Kanreki series, very unliking. So I welcome any shed topics you might want to discuss more. Okay, that's going to be in the class, and that's going to be what we're doing for paid subscribers. Will get to see those films in their fullness as we do that, and they'll also get heavy discounts on the course itself and all the interaction involved in the online course. And free subscribers will get parts of those classes. Okay. Brian Besor, Cormoran and Shanker being doppelgangers is clear enough. Are Harry and Mundungus the Harry Potter equivalents? Brian, I love you to death, but that one just had my head spinning. I never thought of Harry and Mundungus Fletcher as doppelgangers. And you, as a student of Victorian literature, Brian, you've got to have something in mind there, because that just totally that lost me. But I'm gonna say that Harry's doppelgangers are much more obvious in Neville Longbottom and the Dark Lord himself. I talked a little bit about that in the thing. Susanna Schwartz, I love this series. Susanna, if you want my attention, you'll start off with that sentence. I love this series. I wonder if you'd be willing to talk about truth versus falsehood and fake versus real spirituality in Rowling's work. Thinking here especially of Running Grave and the contrast we're given between the UHC and Strike's experience in the church. Thanks if you can. Yeah, that is. I talked about that a little bit in the breakdown of Running Grave, because the Dead Center chapter that there, it has Will Edensor quoting scripture to this fake spiritual celebrity in a kitchen. And here's a man who's really searching, really seeking, and he's found it in the most bizarre places. I mean, he's gotten those scripture pieces, I don't think from the originals, but probably from, via the UHC's, pseudo Bible, but he's found meat, he's found spiritual substance. And I think Rowling is saying that exactly the distinction that Susanna's talking about here. There's fake versus real spirituality, truth versus falsehood. And that I think she may be suggesting that God honors those people that are sincere. I don't want to use the word authentic in their pursuit of things. That scene in the chapel, Nick, maybe I should let you talk about that, because I have a minority opinion on that subject about what happens in that chapel. Nick, do you want to share like V. Groves' opinion on that? Because I'm.
Yeah. So it. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful chapter. It's from a UK perspective, it's also incredibly nostalgic. So as a young man, it was common knowledge that vicars always wore bicycle clips, and we have the vicar wearing bicycle clips. Must have been the last vicar in the UK. They've all got little runabout cars now, but must have been the last vicar in the UK that still wore bicycle clips. It is very spiritual. That you could talk about the vicar being the embodiment of God. You could talk about that Charlotte, the visitation from Charlotte is from her spirit. I get in lots of arguments with other guys in the fandom because of my theory that Charlotte was murdered. And their fear is that would destroy the beauty of that chapter. And I think if you go back, or certainly when I go back, and I'm still quite wedded to my Charlotte is murdered theories, but when I go back and read that chapter, I think it still fits. I think it could still be the spirit of Charlotte. I think she's just vague enough, with the, well, if that's the way you want to see it, I'm dead. I can't object. It's just vague enough that it could still fit.
We'll have to have a special episode, maybe just on that church scene.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if the Charlotte thing is going to be revealed in Strike 8 or Strike 10, but it's definitely going to be a thing, I think. I'm going to let that one go. But to answer your question, yeah, that's a great thing. Truth versus falsehood, fake versus real, especially in terms of what Rowling talks about as the real. I talked about that at some length in the Kanreki episodes, but yeah, that's a core theme in Rowling's work, is what is real and how do we know it. On to the next question. John, I love your new special shed. Love the fire pit. Is it Gar? No, it's Ger. It's G-E-R, but it's pronounced like, the Roman E there. That's Ger is the Mongolian word. Yurt is the Soviet word for shack. Shame on them. Anyway, Mighty Mez, I would love to hear more about Rowling's feminism. As Nick and I have said, look elsewhere. We'll talk about.
Well, I still think it would be nice for us to do it. I think it
Yeah,
would be nicer for us to do it with somebody that knows a bit more about the subject than
yeah,
two old men.
that's right. Yeah, we're very hesitant to offer our knowledge as anything like expertise on the subject. I will talk about Germaine Greer and Camille Paglia's views on abortion and transgenderism because they parallel very closely to Rowling's work, and they're both accomplished literary scholars. Presbytera Lois, finally, Presbytera. After making extensive notes during this episode, I ordered 2 books. This is about the ring thing, Thinking in Circles and Harry Potter and Ring Composition. And that's why we did that episode. And it was, I said um, that was going to be much more than an hour. Well, Nick and I had some confusion, and so
We basically overran badly on the previous episode, and my poor timekeeping meant I was constantly, John, you got to hurry up, John, you got to hurry up. So that was not as in depth as John intended it to be. Apologies for that.
well, Nick's being very polite. We went very long in the previous one. That was my fault. And Nick only had, he doesn't want to be up until midnight filming these things and then having to edit them, et cetera. So yeah, that was, believe me, the ring composition thing is, I think I said during that show that I've done weekend seminars on ring composition just in Harry Potter, not to mention the other stuff. So yeah, in the courses that we offer, there'll be a lot more on that. Presbyterian also asked for stuff about the foundation crime event and stories, events in the alchemical structure, like the wedding of sulfur and mercury. Also, I'm rather fond of Jung's alchemical psychological stages, especially Kit Trinitas, the yellow stage, education and enlightenment right before Rebecca. Is there a reason his stages aren't mentioned or used? Well, Kit Trinitas actually is discussed in Deathly Hallows lectures, I think, very briefly because of all the yellow and gold that appears at the wedding of the Weasley brother and Fleur Delacour. Everybody appears in gold and light, and that's the Contrinitas right before the Rebecca. But yeah, you definitely have to talk a lot more about Jung in any course on Rowling because so much of what she does seems to have Jungian touches, and her affection for the words archetype and stuff like that. She touches them off. There's a post I did called a Jungian reading of Troubled Blood. You want to read that to get how much Rowling was definitely pointing to Jung. She mentions him by name inside Troubled Blood.
I'm just going to insert the word Bill here, Bill Weasley. Otherwise, we're going to get a flood of comments, people saying Bill.
I like those comments, Nick. I like people saying true book, Slughorn, you nimwits, I'm like, okay, yeah. We're doing this by the seat of our pants, right? Natalie, thank you both so much for sharing your insights and analysis. Wants more episodes on chiastic ring structure as well as literary alchemy. Then she mentioned that I got the author wrong on Planets in Peril. I actually got the book wrong. I got the author right. It's Sanford Schwartz. Anyway, can't wait to read your new book, Harry Potter Unlocked. Well, that's basically what I'm writing with this course that I'm creating. So we'll get there. Ed Shardlow, he talks about the discussion of the Lethifold and the Dementors, and called to mind a third dark, formless, devouring entity, the disembodied Voldemort. That spectral shadow form possessing and spooking the fauna of an Albanian forest, and also the hooded monstrosity drinking unicorn blood in their forbidden forest. Ed, I think that's a bullseye. That Rowling's Lethifold type image there of, I think that is like the unconscious mind, because Voldemort is the shadow inside Harry Potter. That is her nightmare, is living life with the shadow never brought into the light. Okay, Aurora. Woo! Oh boy, Aurora, this was a great question. I'm not sure we can even begin to talk about this one here. I don't think it's fair to say that Fry, and she's not about Northrop Fry, she's talking about Stephen Fry, doesn't understand the value and meaning of mythologies. He's written a load of books that explore the Greek myths and oral storytelling tradition, for instance. I don't like Fry because of his cowardice about the homophobic, misogynistic, transgender movement. Thank you, Aurora. But I don't think he or any other atheists are necessarily ignorant or incurious about the importance of mythologies, including present-day religions. Ouch. Okay. I'm an atheist, and some of my favorite public atheists have degrees in Christian theology, such as Alex O'Connor. I did a history myself, etc. Okay. Now, I'm not saying atheists are stupid, Aurora. I'm saying that it's going to be very difficult for an atheist who implicitly is saying that there isn't a divine aspect of the human person that is continuous with the fabric of reality, some creative principle of a transcendent God that brings things into existence. That to me is the definition of an atheist, is that denial. And mythology is strictly about exteriorizing in story that viewpoint of the world. So again, I'm not saying people are stupid. Many of them obviously are much more educated than I am, and much more knowledgeable about mythology, both in its details, its mechanics, etc. I am saying that that it's fair to say that Fry, as qua atheist, doesn't understand the value and meaning of mythologies as such, as much as they're a vehicle of a traditional worldview.
So that's not the same as saying he doesn't know about mythology. He is a classicist, and as Aurora's mentioned, he's written extremely popular books on the Greek mythology. And just to back up what John says about atheism and being stupid. So I'm on a nascent sort of spiritual journey myself, and as part of that journey, I'm reading atheist texts, so texts from atheists about their atheism, and it's pointless for me to do that if I'm reading a stupid man's books. So I'm looking for clever atheists as part of, and clever Christians, and I think I found a clever Buddhist as well, but anyone who's on a journey either towards atheism or towards spirituality, to do that with their eyes open and competently, they need to read clever people. Now, Fry, although he is an outspoken atheist, hasn't really written about his atheism much, so I don't know how nuanced really his position is and how he's come to that understanding of his place in the universe.
Really, a lot of atheism, Aurora, forgive me, I certainly don't know what your views on this are, but my experience of atheists is that most of them are just disgusted by religious institutions. They don't like the church, they don't like the temple, they don't like the mosque, whatever. And that's certainly those places have always been filled with human beings, and so they're always going to have their failings. But that doesn't mean that that's like saying that you've met bad plumbers and you don't want plumbing in your house. It's not right. All right. Whew. Presbyterian Lewis. On a tear this past weekend, I went through the strike books and made a list of all the illnesses, diseases, accidents throughout, looking for patterns. Wow, Presbyterian. Has anybody else done this? Not that I know of, Presbyterian.
Publish.
Seriously, because Rowling said in the Barmy Smarmy Army, interview that that's what Ink Black Heart is about.
Yeah.
So, Rowling doesn't write about anything. Yeah. What was it? Owen Barfield said about Lewis that what Lewis believed about anything is evident in everything that he wrote. Or maybe it's what Lewis believed about everything is evident in anything he wrote. But that's certainly true of Rowling. If she made illnesses, disease, accidents, the theme of one book, then it may be a sub-theme of all of her other books. So I look forward, Presbyterian, to having that conversation. But no, nobody I know has done this. Aurora offered an alternative theory to lost child abortion thesis. And I'm not going to talk about that here, but it's definitely going to be the subject of what we're going to be talking about next week, because that's one of the alternative ideas which I find compelling. I did want to tell you that, Aurora, when you use the initial CSA, that in feminist groups or in Australia means child sexual abuse. I had to look it up because in the United States, CSA means the Confederate States of America, and or the Cub Scouts or something. So I was just like, what are we? A third of the girls are Confederates? What does that mean? Anyway, sorry, that seems snarky. Aurora, that was one of the most challenging comments we got in all the ones that we did there, and it's going to be the subject of much further commentary.
Should we move on to our last question for this episode?
Sure, Nick, and you read it because I've still got a lot more here. Go ahead.
Okay, so this one from Sylvia.
Yeah, okay.
Would you be able to describe for me the Greek or classical threads running through J.K. Rowling's work? Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that Order of the Phoenix is J.K. Rowling's most obviously classic work, with the prophecy and attempted infanticide that comes back against Voldemort with a vengeance, and the younger generations pushing against the older generations in war, etc. But I know that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I don't have the book in my hand, Sylvia, but there's a work that is entirely devoted to this subject by a classicist. It's put out by one of the borderline vanity presses. And in Literary Illusion Harry Potter by our friend Beatrice Groves, there's an entire chapter on this. And in Deathly Hallows Lectures, I talk about the backdrop with Aeschylus in the stories. But yeah, this has been the subject of a book, of a chapter in a book on literary illusion, and in my specific interpretation of one of her works. I'm not going to talk about that as such. I am going to do a mythology tool in the shed, which will have a lot of that in it. Because Rowling every one of her books has a mythological backdrop. She has a template that she uses from mythology. You know, it's Theseus and the Minotaur in Fantastic Beasts. It's the Aeschylus, novels of the Aristeia trilogy in Harry Potter. And help me out, Nick. In Cormoran Strike, there's a whole host of things. We've got Leda and the Swan. We've got Castor and Pollux, and we've got Cupid and Psyche. So yeah, that's going to be one of the threads I talk about in the courses that we're putting together, and the classes that paid subscribers will have full access to as we film them, and then they'll get a discount on the whole course and those things as they come out. But yeah, Sylvia, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Woo, Nick, we got through all the questions. I can't believe it.
We did.
That's...
So I think as more questions come in, more comments, I think this is probably a good way of having a discussion about them. So there will be an upcoming Q&A, I'm sure, as more questions come in. But what's next, John?
What next is I'm going to write up the Lost Child Golden Thread. Nick and I will have conversations about that. Those pieces. Nick, I hope, will be writing something about class structure in the UK. But we're going to be, I hope, posting weekly videos like this, and more solid, referable, items, cut and paste type items. Like John said this about the golden threads. We're going to continue the fourth generation work and prepare basically a fourth generation course so that you can get all the Lake and Shed material rather than just a one-off Lake and Shed reading of each one of Rowling's works. You'll get a full picture of Rowling studies, where we're at today. And I'm very excited about that. I'm very grateful to our paid subscribers who have, up until this point, simply been paying us money for stuff they could get gotten for free. And now we're going to give benefits to those people and Thanksgiving for their generosity to us, and continue this work. Very exciting time. Thank you all for listening through the whole Kanreki series. If you managed to go through each piece of it, thank you for your reading to us. That's support in its own way, and thank you for those who have paid for subscriptions.
Thank you, Justin and Anne, for joining us, and yes, thank you to all our paid subscribers, and we will see you again very soon.
Bye.